The aces and eights. What is going on with the aces and eights? I made a few videos. I made several videos on this channel talking about the aces and eights. What is going on? What's happening with the reunion? Are they coming back to Impact Wrestling? Are they not coming back to Impact Wrestling now that we're removed from Slammiversary and removed from Impact Wrestling this past week on Tuesday on Access Television? What's the latest? What's the update when it comes to the aces and eights? And it's a really interesting situation at the moment when it comes to the aces and eights and the possible reformation, return to Impact Wrestling of that famous faction. Now, obviously, Slammiversary has come and gone at the weekend, and we saw numerous people return to Impact Wrestling, whether it be the Motor City Machine Guns, whether it be Eric Young, whether it saw the debut of the Good Brothers, whether it saw the debut of Heath Slater, whether it saw the return of EC3 to Impact Wrestling. But a glaring omission from that list was the aces and eights. A lot of people had speculated, myself included, that the aces and eights would soon be returning to the company, and we haven't seen it yet. The reason why many people speculated that the aces and eights were going to return to the company as well was because Impact Wrestling themselves had teased it. We saw teases even on Impact Wrestling itself, whether it was classic moments that they were showing on Impact Wrestling. A classic moment included in Bully Ray winning the TNA World Heavyweight Championship back in 2013 at Lockdown, in which he was revealed to be the president of the Aces and Eights during his TNA World Heavyweight Championship match against Jeff Hardy. Of course, you had that moment where the Aces and Eights come out, they surround the cage, and then Devon jumps into the ring. He reveals himself. Throws the hammer to Bully Ray, who then reveals himself to be the president of the Aces and Eights and attack Jeff Hardy, winning the TNA World Heavyweight Championship. But we got even less subtle teasers than that from the likes of D'Lo Brown. We had D'Lo Brown, this was a couple of weeks ago on Impact Wrestling. We had D'Lo Brown sitting at a desk. He's typing away on his computer. He's, of course, a producer, an executive at Impact Wrestling. And then he's typing away, and in comes Reno Scum. They mock him. They say, didn't you used to be someone? Didn't you used to be someone of purpose? Didn't you used to be the vice president of the Aces and Eights? They mock him, call him a computer geek, and then split. They get out of there. Fast forward to the end of the show, and we see him chatting on the phone, saying, I don't want to be known as a stooge. I don't want to be known as a computer geek. I don't want to be known as that corporate guy. I want to get the band back together. And that resulted in him getting out of his chair. And then we saw the Aces and Eights cuts as Impact went off the air. And a lot of people went, right, Aces and Eights, it's happening. The faction is returning to the company. And it was exciting. Because say what you will, this is important as well. Say what you will about the Aces and Eights, and say what you will about TNA and Impact Wrestling, whatever, during that period of time in sort of 2012, 2013. A lot of people did like and do like that faction. A lot of people want to see it return. There is certainly a demand to see it return to the company, as evidenced by the amount of people that are excited and the amount of people that are talking about a potential Aces and Eights return to Impact Wrestling. People want to see it come back. People are interested in seeing the group come back to the company. Well, obviously, as I mentioned, Slammiversary came and went, and we saw no Aces and Eights. We did see the Good Brothers at the event, and some people speculated, the Good Brothers, they're going to be the ones that are involved with Aces and Eights, right? Doc Gallows used to be a member of the Aces and Eights. He was the first person that was revealed to be a part of the Aces and Eights back in, was it 2012, when he got his mask taken off and he was revealed to be a member. He's got links to it. He was even making posts on social media. One of them was his actual Aces and Eights cut. People are thinking, right, Doc Gallows is the facilitator. He's going to be the one that brings back the Aces and Eights. Carl Anderson, of course, he's never been in Impact Wrestling, but he has been a leader of a faction before. He was the leader of the New Japan group, the Bullet Club, once Prince Devitt had left and gone to WWE to become Finn Balor. A lot of people forget that. Some people assume that AJ Styles, during that period of time, was the leader of the Bullet Club. He was not. He was the IWGP Heavyweight Champion, but he was not the leader of the group. Carl Anderson was the one who was the leader of the Bullet Club during that period of time. So people naturally and logically assumed that, okay, Gallows and Anderson, they're going to be the ones involved with Aces and Eights. Bully Ray, at the time, everything felt like it was coming together. Bully Ray at the time had his contract had just expired with Ring of Honor. He still hasn't signed an extension with the Ring of Honor to continue appearing there because they're not handing out new contracts at the moment. Is there anyone more associated with the Aces and Eights than Bully Ray himself? Absolutely not. That is not the case. He was the former president of the Aces and Eights. He was the Aces and Eights. The whole gimmick of the Aces and Eights was about him and getting him over as the TNA World Heavyweight Champion. It made the most sense. So that happens, and again, people are going, great. We know the Aces and Eights are coming back. Bully Ray is just out of his contract with Ring of Honor. He's got history with the Aces and Eights, and he's got history with Impact Wrestling. He's a former TNA World Heavyweight Champion. They're speculating that a former world champion will be returning to the company at Slammiversary. It all just made a lot of sense and all fit together really well. But come Slammiversary, no Aces and Eights. The former TNA or former world champion that returns was Eric Young in the Slammiversary main event for the vacant Impact World Championship. We also saw EC3 return at the event as well, a former world champion. And we also saw Chris Sabin return as part of the Motor City Machine Guns at the event as well. Chris Sabin, of course, is also a former TNA World Heavyweight Champion in his own right. But no Bully Ray, no Aces and Eights, no Aces and Eights reveal from Gallows and Anderson. So what's the latest when it comes to the Aces and Eights? Now, I made a video earlier this week saying, let's wait to see what happens at the TV tapers. Let's wait to see what happens on Impact Wrestling on Tuesday. Again, no Aces and Eights. We saw Gallows and Anderson at the event. They came out, cut a promo. They were interrupted by Ace Austin and Madman Fulton. It was announced as Gallows and Anderson were leaving the arena there in Nashville that next week Gallows and Anderson will make their in-ring debut for Impact Wrestling, facing off against Reno Scum, the very same people who actually mocked D'Lo Brown. We'll touch on that in a second. But again, no Aces and Eights, no Bully Ray, no nothing. So this has led to a report and a couple of reports that I've seen this scattered around. Nothing super official, but I have seen people talking about it a little bit. Speculating that essentially the Aces and Eights reunion and the Aces and Eights return was a red herring. It was just a case of Impact Wrestling trying to get people excited and trying to keep people guessing about who the mystery people could be at Slammiversary and trying to get people interested in the pay-per-view and just trying to get people's attention and just trying to make sure that people watch Slammiversary and people were excited for Slammiversary. They said the best way to do this could be to tease at the Aces and Eights, but the tease actually is meaningless. They don't have any intentions on bringing it back. It was just a red herring. That's all it was. It was just to keep people guessing. And I read that, and there's a couple of emotions that I feel, and I think it's good to talk about him here. One, I read that and I'm disappointed if that is true, that the Aces and Eights won't be returning, because I think, myself included, I think quite a lot of people were excited and wanted to see them return to the company, and I still think that's a possibility. The second being, I don't think that's the case, and I'll tell you why I don't think that is the case. Everything that Impact has teased so far, they've pretty much paid off. They've pretty much paid off. You had the EC3 tease when it came to Moose defeating Hernandez for the TNA World Heavyweight Championship a few weeks ago on Impact Wrestling. EC3's music plays, the announcers are confused, Moose is confused, everyone is confused. What's going on? EC3's music stops playing. Lo and behold, at Slammiversary, EC3 is one of the people to return to Impact Wrestling. So that's ticked off. We saw a couple of Super Eric teasers. We saw a promo whereby it looks like a superhero guy is going to grab his costume, his cape, his mask, and it looks very similar to Super Eric. Naturally, people were looking at that going, that's Super Eric. Fast forward a couple of weeks later, you had Johnny Swinger on Impact Wrestling. He's looking around for a disguise to have a match against Willie Mack. And he finds the Suicide outfit, but in addition to this, he also finds the Super Eric costume, and again, was another tease to Super Eric coming back to Impact Wrestling. Now that was a red herring, kind of, because people naturally assumed, okay, Super Eric, that means Eric Young is returning to Impact Wrestling, and that was the case. Eric Young did indeed return to Impact Wrestling. He was one of the mystery competitors this past Saturday at the Slammiversary event for the Impact World Championship, the vacant Impact World Championship. So even though that was a red herring, they kind of paid that one off as well. Also, another tease that they did, Scott D'Amore. Scott D'Amore, a couple of weeks ago, was Scott D'Amore, he was on the phone to a Mystery People. He said, I think that a place like Impact Wrestling would be the perfect place for a couple of good brothers like yourself to come and work. Well, lo and behold, on the day of Slammiversary, as soon as it hit midnight for Saturday, we got the announcement that the Good Brothers, Luke Gallows and Carl Anderson, had indeed signed with Impact Wrestling, as many people had speculated. So Impact Wrestling paid off that tease. Also, a couple of weeks ago, you had Rhino. Rhino's backstage, he's talking to people, and they say, what about as a tag team partner? He says, I don't need a tag team partner, I've already got one, and he's got kids. Lo and behold, who debuts at Slammiversary? None other than Heath Slater, Rhino's former SmackDown Tag Team Champion tag team partner. So every single thing that they've teased, they've paid off here. And some people will have said, well, that's the point. That's the point of the Aces and Eights being the red herring. It was to get people guessing. It was to get people talking like we're doing now. But if Impact doesn't follow through on this, I think it will backfire on them, because I think out of the teasers that they were doing, I would say the Aces and Eights one certainly was the one that I think got probably the most attention. Arguably, yeah, EC3 was probably the one there also that maybe got more attention. But I think the Aces and Eights tease that Impact Wrestling was doing got people talking, got people excited. People want to see the group come back because it's a group that's remembered fondly, and it's a cool group. And I think the idea that it was just a red herring, at the moment, I just don't buy it. I just don't buy it because of every other tease that Impact Wrestling has done. They've paid off. And in addition to this is also a really important point here. In addition to the teases that they've done, they also were teasing the Aces and Eights back for the TNA There's No Place Like Home event back in April. Now, if you're not familiar with this, we've spoken about this quite a length here on the channel, but there was meant to be an event back in April run by Impact Wrestling. It was meant to be during WrestleMania weekend there in Orlando. Obviously, it's mythic at this point, isn't it, that WrestleMania weekend, wherever it is, you have every single wrestling company there piggybacking the event, whether it's Ring of Honor, Impact Wrestling, various independent shows. They all do shows that weekend in that, mostly that city, but sometimes that state as well, because there's wrestling fans. Everyone comes from all over the world to go to WrestleMania and to do the events in the week that lead up to WrestleMania. Sometimes it's not even just to go to WrestleMania. Some people sometimes just travel in. They couldn't get tickets to WrestleMania, but they want to go to all the other events that are going on during that weekend. So professional wrestling companies, they piggyback the event and they do very, very well, and they make a lot of money. So Impact Wrestling was going to be no different. They were going to run a TNA style throwback show, a TNA reunion show called TNA There's No Place Like Home. And it was going to be a TNA embracing the past, essentially. And you had people on there already announced, like Chris Sabin. They were going to crown a new TNA World Heavyweight Champion at the show in Moose and have a King of the Ladder match style main event. So everything that they had planned on this show obviously didn't happen. Why? Because of the pandemic. So everything got scrapped. But a lot of interesting things that were meant to happen on that show have subsequently happened since anyway. As I mentioned, the main event was meant to be a King of the Mountain ladder match, rather, for the TNA World Heavyweight Championship. And the winner of that match was going to be Moose. And then he was going to introduce the TNA World Heavyweight Championship back into the storylines on Impact Wrestling and call himself the real world champion and carry around the TNA World Heavyweight Championship. Well, look what's happened since. We're at this very moment in time. Moose carries around the TNA World Heavyweight Championship. He calls himself the real world champion, and he regularly defends the TNA World Heavyweight Championship. He did it at Slammiversary against Tommy Dreamer. He did it this past week against Fallah Bahh, and he's done it against multiple people in the promotion so far. So Impact Wrestling decided that whilst they wanted to do that during this show, they were going to persevere with it anyway, regardless of the TNA There's No Place Like Home event getting cancelled due to the pandemic or not. They found a way to persist with it, and they just said, instead of you winning it, just show up with it. Just show up at the Rebellion show and call yourself the TNA World Heavyweight Champion, and that's what's happened. Again, the same thing happened with the Motor City Machine Guns. Chris Sabin was announced for the TNA There's No Place Like Home event back in April. During the show, it was going to be a surprise that was going to be revealed by everyone, but during the show, he was going to reunite with Alex Shelley as the Motor City Machine Guns, and they were going to have tag team matches, and I guess this would facilitate a return of the Motor City Machine Guns to the tag team competition in Impact Wrestling. Well, what's happened? This past weekend at Slammiversary, the tag team open challenge by the Rascals to open the show was answered by none other than Chris Sabin and Alex Shelley as the Motor City Machine Guns, marking their return to the company. And then this past week, they challenged the North for the Impact World Tag Team Championships, and wouldn't you know it, they defeated them, ending their year-long reign as Impact Tag Team Champions, and the Motor City Machine Guns are the new Impact Tag Team Champions going forward, opening up several exciting matches and dream matches in the future. Again, something that was planned for the TNA There's No Place Like Home event back in April that they moved to Slammiversary and have followed through with anyway. So, where am I going with this? Well, back at the TNA There's No Place Like Home event in April, you had the Aces and Eights announced for the show. Those people in the Aces and Eights were going to be D'Lo Brown and Mr. Anderson, Ken Anderson, two former vice presidents of the Aces and Eights. Of course, the show didn't happen. The event got cancelled due to the pandemic, but like with everything else that has happened or was meant to happen on that show, I think they're going to follow through with it, and I think it's going to end up on Impact Wrestling television very, very soon. Just because it hasn't happened now doesn't mean it won't happen in the future, and I disagree with the reports that it's a red herring, and I certainly hope that that isn't the case. Because D'Lo Brown was one of those names that was involved in the backstage vignettes teasing that the Aces and Eights were going to return. He was the one that was going to be part of the Aces and Eights back in April anyway. So it would make you think logically, okay, they're going to continue with this storyline, they're going to continue with this Aces and Eights reunion, because that's what they've been teasing. That's what they've been teasing all the way back to April. And even back in April when, or prior to April rather, when the announcement was made that D'Lo Brown and Mr. Anderson were going to be returning as the Aces and Eights, that got a lot of people talking. You know, people were talking about the TNA theme style of the event, and people were excited about that. But once people said, oh, the Aces and Eights are going to be coming back too, everyone went, whoa, I like the Aces and Eights. They're a fun group, they're a cool group. Regardless of how they were booked or what was going on with Impact Wrestling at the time, people look back on that group fondly. So, it makes you think that it's likely that Impact Wrestling haven't given up on this. This wasn't a red herring. Just because the tease hasn't been followed through on yet, doesn't mean it won't be followed through on altogether. Now, I mentioned Reno Scum earlier. Again, this is important. And I mentioned the Good Brothers. I mentioned Gallows and Anderson. So, on this week on Impact Wrestling, Ace Austin and Madman Fulton, they confronted the Good Brothers once again like they did at the weekend. And they announced it was in the parking lot, actually, as Gallows and Anderson are going to leave the arena. They say to him, you're going to have a match next week. It's not going to be against us, though. It's going to be against Reno Scum. And I believe Reno Scum actually attacked the Good Brothers in the parking lot there outside of the arena. So next week on Impact Wrestling, we're going to get the in-ring debuts of Gallows and Anderson in Impact Wrestling, or in Gallows' case, return to Impact Wrestling. And we're going to have Reno Scum versus the Good Brothers. Why is that crucial, in my opinion, to the return of the Aces and Eights? Well, it's, as I mentioned earlier in the video, it's been widely speculated that the people or persons going to be greatly involved in the return of the Aces and Eights not only are going to be D'Lo Brown, but are going to be the Good Brothers. For the reasons I mentioned earlier, Luke Gallows used to be part of the Aces and Eights as Doc Gallows, DOC, Director of Chaos, I believe it was, and Carl Anderson's association with the Bullet Club in New Japan. It just seems like a natural fit, given the parallels between the Aces and Eights and the Bullet Club. It makes the most sense. But Reno Scum were the ones that, through their intimidation, shall we say, of D'Lo Brown and their mocking of D'Lo Brown, was the catalyst for him to say, I want to get the band back together. So, Reno Scum are having a match against people that people think will be associated with the Aces and Eights, and Reno Scum was the one that forced D'Lo's hand in the first place. So, it's highly likely, in my opinion, or at least possible, that during this match is when we see the return of the Aces and Eights to Impact Wrestling television. D'Lo Brown's got his issues with Reno Scum. He comes out, looks at Reno Scum in the ring, has Gallows and Anderson there looking on in confusion. They attack Reno Scum, and then it's finally revealed that the Aces and Eights are indeed back, and D'Lo Brown is one of the members, along with Gallows and Anderson, and potentially some other people. I mentioned that we could also have some other names in Impact Wrestling that can be added to it. Certainly a possibility. I still think it could be a possibility that we mentioned about D'Lo Brown, we mentioned about Gallows and Anderson. What about Ace Austin himself? Maybe Ace Austin, he's got Ace in his name, he's got Aces tattooed on his body, he carries around an Ace card, maybe instead of just having Madman Fulton as his backup, maybe he has someone like D'Lo Brown as his backup too. And if they can't get in Bully Ray, perhaps then they have Ace Austin become the new president of the Aces and Eights. Heading into Slammiversary, the big discussion was, could Ace Austin become the youngest world champion in Impact Wrestling history? It didn't happen. But on the flip side of that, could Ace Austin perhaps become the youngest president of Aces and Eights in the faction's history or something like that? But I think the crucial thing coming out of this is that I don't know if I necessarily truly buy some of what people have been saying, that it was just a red herring, because the most red herring thing that Impact Wrestling have done so far is the Super Eric tease, whereas in reality, we did get Eric Young returned to the company, so that tease was partially correct. But the red herring element of it is that we couldn't have got further away from Super Eric in the version of Eric Young that returned to the company, right? Super Eric is kind of this sort of, again, in my opinion, it was TNA's version of the Blue Blazer, where you had this sort of comedic buffoon, which is, no disrespect to Owen Hart, but that's how he's kind of been booked at the time. And then you had the Blue Blazer, and they would deny that it was Owen Hart, and even have some people appear next to Owen Hart as the Blue Blazer was attacking people. He had like a feud with Steve Blackman at the time, and it was TNA's version of that. It was Eric Young at the time was a comedic buffoon. He was scared of his own pyro and would fall down every time his pyro went off. And at some points, I believe it was during a feud, I want to say with Robert Roode. At the time, he had Tracy Brooks as his valet. But during that period of time, and then Super Eric starts to appear, and it's obviously Eric Young. It's very obviously Eric Young, but he's got super strength, and he's charismatic, he's got confidence, he's charming, he gets the girl, he wins the matches, but ultimately he denies that it's ever him. You're just Eric Young. No, I'm not Eric Young. That in contrast to the Eric Young that we have seen since Eric Young has returned to the company, I mean, it's chalk and cheese. It's complete on the opposite end of the spectrum. Eric Young is playing a character similar to his role in Sanity, but I'd say even more chaotic. He's this madman, chaos, loose cannon, just pariah, just vicious, attacking people. The way that he attacked Rich Swann, and the way that he confronted Eddie Edwards this past week on Impact Wrestling, it's just completely different. It's the Joker, but in Eric Young form. It's this crazed, psychotic madman that is Eric Young, which, of course, in comparison to a comedic gimmick like Super Eric, is a million miles away. They're completely different to each other. So that, of course, was a red herring. That was a red herring that Impact Wrestling did there. But I don't think they still didn't lie with their tease. And I think that's really important to talk about, because look, at the moment, Impact Wrestling, they've got a ton of momentum. There is probably the most positive press and PR that Impact Wrestling are getting right now is the most positive they've got in a long, long time. And Slammiversary was a huge success for the company. Trended worldwide, trended #1 in the United States. The Fight TV, they're not going to release the numbers most likely, but from all the reports, everyone's essentially saying it's the best Impact Wrestling pay-per-view for a long, long, long time. We'll probably get the pay-per-view numbers in a few months, but from the Fight TV streaming numbers, most people are saying it's the most successful pay-per-view that an event that Impact Wrestling have done in a long, long time. And there certainly is a lot of buzz, a lot of talk, and just a lot of positivity. I don't think on my timeline on Twitter or Instagram or anything like that, I've seen as much Impact Wrestling as I have seen in the last couple of weeks, which says a lot about the momentum that they have. And I just don't know if it would be a good idea for them now to begin teasing things, or have teased things that they're not going to deliver on. You've just got faith back with the audience, and you've just got all of these new fans come back to your company, or maybe not even come back. Some people may not have even been around for the initial boom of Impact Wrestling or the old days of Impact Wrestling on Spike TV. Maybe there are new wrestling fans that have never watched the product before, and you've just got them for the first time. That means that they've got faith in you. They believe in the product that you're presenting, and they believe on the things that you promise. And I just think that teasing something that's never going to happen is a very quick way to lose faith of the audience, and a way to turn the audience against you, because we've all been there. I mean, WWE have done it a million times, right? It's like with the SmackDown hacker gimmick right now. They tease something, we get a taste of it, and we get excited. You're invested in it. You go, this is great. We're going to see this cool storyline. We're going to see this cool thing, whatever. And then it doesn't happen, and you're just like, you feel so deflated, and you're like, oh, I was looking forward to that, and I feel stupid almost for getting myself so invested in it, and I feel, you just feel wronged by the company, and I just don't think it would be a wise idea for Impact Wrestling to do that right now. So even if it was the plan for it to be a red herring, if I was advising them, I would say, look, let's somehow follow through on this, even if it's for one night or something. Even if it's D'Lo Brown comes out and tries to get the band back together, tries to go to Doc Gallows and Carl Anderson and say, join me, I'm bringing back the Aces and Eights, and maybe they beat the hell out of him and we never hear from the Aces and Eights again. The Aces and Eights talk is completely squashed. Even that would probably be better than not delivering on anything at all, because I just think at this very crucial period of time where you have just got the fans back on your side or new fans watching the product, you can't not deliver on something. It's just too crucial to break the relationship already. So hopefully they at least partially deliver on this hint that the Aces and Eights is going to be returning to Impact Wrestling in the future. But as always, this is just one man's opinion. What are your thoughts? Do you think that the teases for Aces and Eights was just a red herring? Do you think we'll ever see them return to Impact Wrestling, or are we never going to see any talk about the Aces and Eights ever again? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I'll be sure to respond to all of your comments down there. I really enjoy interacting with all of your comments, so please do leave a comment down there. If you have enjoyed the video, please do give us a like too. It really does help us out on the channel in terms of reaching more people and going into people's recommendation feed. So if you have enjoyed it, please do give us a like, and also if you've liked it so much to share it with a friend, you can do that too via the share button. But most importantly, please do subscribe to Wrestle News 365. You can do that by clicking the bottom right hand corner of the screen right now, or if you wait a few seconds, there'll be a subscribe button at the end of this video. We're on the road to 600 subscribers, on that long road to 1,000 subscribers. As always, as I keep mentioning, and I'll keep mentioning it until we get to 1,000 subscribers. Once we get to 1,000 subscribers, we will be doing daily watch-alongs, live streams, you name it, we'll be doing it. It's just a lot easier to do that once we have 1,000 subscribers. So the quicker we get there, we can have some real fun and exciting content on the channel. But likewise, if you already have subscribed to Wrestle News 365, I really do appreciate your support. The amount of people watching and interacting and liking and all of that fun stuff with our videos is just incredibly humbling. So we wouldn't be anywhere without you. So I really, really do appreciate everyone that has already subscribed and watches these videos. You can also follow us on all of our social media platforms. The handles are on the screens right now. It's at 365Wrestle on Twitter and at WrestleNews365 on Facebook and Instagram. The links to all of those platforms are in the description box below. So be sure to give us a like or a follow if you like. Thank you very much for watching, listening, streaming, or however you've come across this video today. And I'll speak with you again very, very soon. Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.